All right, welcome everybody to America's Security Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Bartron, founder and CEO of America's Security. Really excited today to have a very special guest with us, the one and only Mr. Ali Zamany. Thank you for joining us today. It's really awesome to have you here. I've been a huge fan of you for a very long time. Somehow or another, I got to following you on Instagram, and it's such an unbelievable story. Such a powerful, inspirational speaker. We had the benefit of hearing you today, and needless to say, we got a little fired up. It was a lot of fun. I have to say, the one picture that I saw on your Instagram that I really loved was of the beginning of the day and the end of the day. Where at the beginning of the day, you were in a suit, and the end of the day, you were out knocking.
In uniform, yep.
Yeah, and I think it was that picture that really said, man, this guy's something else. And I see the way you treat the people that you work with and your mindset about money and about life. And so really excited to be here today with you. You've got two very, very large companies, very successful companies. I know you're recent to entrepreneurialism. So maybe let's start with that. Where does your story begin?
Okay. I guess first of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Absolutely humbled. I said this before and I'll say it again. I think your culture is absolutely incredible. The energy was electric like no other I've seen in a very long time. And I'm just excited to be here. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
All right, so where do I start giving you guys a background? I'll give you the long story short, even though sometimes it turns into the short story long. Grew up in Toronto, Canada, immigrated there as a refugee from Iran. I'm Persian. In the 80s, we had a decade-long war. My parents decided to flee the country. We ended up in Toronto as refugees, eventually became landed immigrants. When you come to a brand new country and you don't speak the language and you don't know the culture and it's different from what you grew up in, it makes it very tough to immerse socially and accept and embrace this new way of living, especially for my parents because they were obviously older than I was. Me, I came at a very early, tender age of 5 years old. I had to get enrolled into ESL, learn the language, learn the culture, learn the mannerisms, and spent my entire childhood and teenagehood from the age of 5 to 19 growing up on welfare, public assistance. So we would move every 6 to 12 months because they would relocate us with subsidized housing, and kind of growing up with lacking what a lot of people would have with a fulfilled childhood. I had a lot of love for my parents. They lost a bit of love for each other and divorced at a very early age when I was 9 years old. So that was pretty traumatic for me. We left the country. All of the extended family was there. Now we're in a new country. And, the entire plan was for us to divide and conquer, go out as a family unit. That family unit, eventually broke up. My sister was a few years older than me. She got into the workforce and started a family at a very early age. So it just kind of left me and my mom, the two of us. And, I struggled as a child. I'm a victim of public schools. And, I didn't always make the right decisions, didn't have the right friendships, didn't have the right intentions. I was easily influenced, and I made a lot of the wrong decisions growing up. Struggled through high school. A lot of people don't know this, but I actually failed grade 11. And at that moment, I made a pretty big decision in my life after speaking with my mom. And it was that I was going to make something of my life. So I decided to go to summer school, went to night school, got my credits, ultimately went into grade 12. My final year of high school, decided to really clamp down and make it worthwhile. A year later, finishing my final year, senior year, ended up getting a 94% average, got a full scholarship to the University of Toronto, one of the top rated schools in the city. My undergrad, because I was good in math, was accounting, and my dream, my goal, my vision was to be a lawyer. So I was going to do 4 years as an undergrad. I was going to apply to law school. I was one of the top rated law schools in Canada, Osgood. And my passion that I wanted to pursue was corporate law. So 4 year undergrad, 4 years of law school. 4 years of interning. So my plan was to go in at 19 and come out at 31, probably a few $100,000 in debt.
At least.
Yeah, at least. And I did all of this to learn how to make a six-figure income. And the reason that I give you this story is I didn't have the credentials. I didn't have the potential or the talent that was required. I didn't have the backstory. I didn't come from a successful or wealthy family. I grew up in a pretty tough environment. I went through a lot of moments of pain and rock bottom. So I wasn't designated to be successful. I wasn't in a position where people looked at me and said, you know what, that guy Ali, he's going to be something in his life. But I started a summer door-to-door sales job, and I remember my mom's best friend's daughter said, hey, Ali, I do this job, and we make a lot of money, and I think you'd be really good at it. And I said, well, what's the job? And she says, well, we go door-to-door, and we sell natural gas to homeowners. And I'm like, door-to-door? Isn't that like an ancient art form? Do people still do door-to-door? How do you guys get paid? Do you get salary? Do you get hourly? No, well, we work on commission. And I didn't know what she was talking about. And I had this mental image in my head of like this big white Econoline van with a bunch of people stacked inside and selling gas. I didn't know what energy deregulation was. I thought they're selling barbecue tanks, propane tanks, door to door. And I'm like, I'm going to walk door to door and sell propane tanks and work on commission. So I really kind of denied it for a really long time. And for a couple of years, she was pitching me. And then the one time, she actually showed me her T4A, which is the Canadian equivalent of a 1099. And her income for the year, and she was 21, third-year university dropout. I'm 19, about to embark on this path of formal education. And her 1099 was $166,000.
Wow.
So I did the old double take, right? Like my eyes, like those cartoons, were popping out of my head.
You were like Wolf of Wall Street when he said, show me your check.
Yeah, exactly. And she showed it to me, and I was dumbfounded. I had no idea that you can make a six-figure income in door-to-door. So immediately my thought process was, I don't care how many fucking propane tanks I got to carry to the doors, I'm coming in. So she booked me in for an interview, came in, worked there for the summer. It was a startup. They weren't well known at all. And I ended up making $50,000 in the summertime.
Wow. So
now September rolls around, right? And I'm doing some math in my head. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If I made $50,000 in the summertime, if I made $50,000 over the course of a quarter of the year, 50,000 times 4 is 200,000, and 200,000 is a six-figure income. So I'm about to embark on this 12-year trajectory to make this kind of money, and I can make that now going door to door. So when you're 19, you don't think about your future. You don't think about any of those things. All you think about is making money. And since I was good with math and I was making a couple $1,000s a week, I'm like $2,000 a week multiplied by 52 weeks in a year. That's a six-figure income. I'm in. So I had to have the difficult conversation with my parents. And, my parents were divorced at the time, so I talked to them separately. But, every culture, education is held in a very high regard. In Western culture, we've adopted the mindset because society has conditioned us. And thanks to the new age entrepreneur, I think that's slowly shifting, but it's going to take a few more decades, maybe sooner. But we have this mindset that's been adopted. Grow up, get an education, because without an education, you cannot be successful. And that's the mindset of not only a lot of people in our generation, but generations that preceded us, like our parents. So they just don't know any better. Then me being Middle Eastern from Iran magnifies that issue even more because we left as refugees from our home country. My parents left who they were and what they knew and the lives that they built through multiple decades to come out for a new opportunity. And it was selfless. It wasn't for them. It was for their children, me and my sister. So now they leave a country, go thousands of miles away for me to become a better person and have a better opportunity.
Have you always felt the pressure from that?
Oh yeah, immensely. And all my cousins back home, they're doctors, lawyers, brain surgeons, and I feel a lot of pressure. So, in the Persian culture, you're either a doctor, you're a lawyer, or you're a bum, you're a shoemaker. There's no in between, right? Education is the only thing that matters. There's a prestige and a status that comes along with it. So it's ingrained to everybody's mind at a young age. So, I am now dropping out of university. I'm forfeiting a scholarship at that. And I'm going from being this prestigious lawyer, which made my mom's wildest dreams come true. And now I'm dropping out to do what? Be a professional door knocker. So
So it went well.
Yeah, that conversation went really well. So yeah, I sat down with them and, Mom, Dad, I'm dropping out of school. I'm not going to be a lawyer and I'm going to be a door knocker. And I was given the quintessential ultimatum. Quit your job and go back to school. Or if you're going to continue this, you're not going to be living in our house. And I lived with my mom at the time. So I had a lot of pain at that moment because nobody understood the journey I was embarking on, even myself at that point. So I started in door-to-door sales, dropped out of school before I even started. And what I learned very early on is take advice from other successful people. My parents, I loved them. My friends, I love them as well, but nobody was doing what I wanted to do. And I came into this office, I came into this company, I came into this culture where people were high energy, they were positive, they seemed very secure, they had control of the income that they made and the growth that they would have. And it just really resonated with me that I didn't know this existed. I almost felt like I was in the Matrix, right? The red pill is
Yeah.
the pill for reality, and then the blue pill is like
Yep.
the land of this fabricated illusion. And it's kind of like I took the blue pill and I fucking loved it. And I'm like, I can't believe people are really this happy day to day and they live and work this way. So I really got drawn in. And then you add the element of, self-education into there, and I'm now reading books and motivating myself, and I'm watching the videos and listening to the meetings and the self-education. And obviously, naturally, when I'm seeing 30, 40, 50 other people locally in my office and hundreds of people, countrywide in Canada doing it, it made me feel, well, if everybody else is doing it, then this is the right thing to do. So I fit in really well. And I was 19. I was easily persuaded. I was easily influenced. I was very susceptible to new information. So I fit right into that environment. I had no preconceived notions. So I came in, made six figures my first year when I turned 20. And I'll tell you that first year I made 100,000. Changed everything. Changed my mindset. And you know what else? It changed everybody else's mindset. Because now all of a sudden, the guy that everybody made fun of that's dropping out of school to go door to door is now making more money than all of you. And I'm also changing as an individual, right? I'm maturing, I'm progressing, I'm leveling up, and everybody saw that. And now my first full year in, everybody's my best friend, mostly because they want to borrow money from me. And, I bought a new car and I would have all the new toys, and everybody was drawn in, right? All the guys wanted to be around me all the time. And my parents slowly kind of started coming back as well and giving it a bit more merit. And it's not just my parents, by the way. All parents are like this. Bill Gates, before Bezos took over, which he might drop down after that divorce, but Bill Gates, when he retained the title 18 out of 20 years of being the world's wealthiest man, I mean, this is an individual that peaked at $88 billion of net worth. And they interviewed his mother, and on public television, they asked his mother, how do you feel about your son's success? And her response was, I'm very proud of my son. I'm very happy. We always knew that Bill would be successful. I just wish Bill finished his degree at Harvard. Like, are you fucking kidding me? This is literally the wealthiest man in the world. And the parents are still dissatisfied because of this social conditioning.
Yeah.
And inevitably, Bill actually went back to Harvard and finished up his degree. I'm not sure if it was because of that or whatever it was, but regardless, I took that pain, it fueled me, and now all of a sudden people are starting to buy in. Fast forward, I got into management. I had a lot of ups and downs. I got promoted and demoted a total of 6 times as a field manager. So I went through the ups and downs. I learned a lot. Within 3 years, I became a regional manager. At the tender age of 22, I became the youngest regional ever in the history of this company. Started making money beyond my wildest dreams. Had a good run rate for a couple of years. Opened up a couple more offices and eventually spread from Canada, came down south into the US, and I had achieved one of my dreams of moving to New York. And my office was dead smack in Manhattan on Wall Street. I'm 25 years old, earning $500,000, 25 years old, door to doors, changing my life. I was beyond myself. I didn't know what to do. And everything happened so quickly that I wasn't paying attention to what was happening along the way. Plus, when things happen unnaturally, and the only way something is unnatural is when it happens at an accelerated pace. Like I talked about early today, I didn't self-actualize as much as I should have. So when I got in that position, I wasn't ready for it mentally. So what started happening is I started self-sabotaging and everything started falling apart. And I went from being the number one regional in the number one office, earning $500,000 a year at 25 years old, to realizing that I had a lot more to learn. So I became the first regional ever in the history of this company I used to work with to demote myself. And I said, you know what? Maybe I'm not ready for this. Maybe I need to take a few steps back. Maybe I need to take some recourse because obviously I didn't pay attention. I'm not ready for this. And it requires a lot of courage and emotional intelligence and self-awareness, which I didn't know I had, to be able to make that decision, to be able to leave the status and the money and everything you've worked towards. Because what I learned in door to door, one of the hardest things to do is to run your own office or maybe your own dealership. To get to that point where you run your own team, we call it a regional manager. Becoming a regional is the single hardest thing you can do in door to door because it requires so much. Until I demoted myself and I realized that actually the hardest thing to do is to demote yourself and then have the courage to actually work towards it again. So I relocated, left New York, left the US, went back to Toronto in November, right before winter, minus 30, minus 40 degree weather. And I went from being at the top of my game to being a door knocker again. And that hurt. That was a tough pill to swallow. I had to ditch the blue pill and take the red pill, get a dose of reality. And it hurt a lot. And I came back and a lot of people, some people told me directly to my face and some people just, I can feel that's what they felt. It's like, I told you so. Told you you're not going to make it. Told you door to door is not a career. Told you it's going to be short-lived. And, Ali moves to New York, running an office on Wall Street, hundreds of thousands, $500,000 a year, to Ali's back in Toronto, schlep rock, back to knocking on doors again with no team. So it was tough. And at that point, I just made a decision that, you know what? I didn't waste the last 6 years here getting to this point. I learned what I need to do, and I don't have to take another 6 years to get back to this point. I can do it at an expedited and exponential rate. So I went right back to the bottom and said, this time I'm going to pay attention to everything that happens. And I did. And went from sales rep, having demoted myself, to basically opening up 14 sales offices within 1 year. So it took me 6 months to get a sales office back. And with me and my ex-partner, we opened up 14. The record in the company was 10. I was opening up offices in every single state. At the age of 26, I became a millionaire. And that's why I still wear this ring. It says the Millionaires Club. And when you make $1 million lifetime in commissions, they award you this ring, and it says conceive, believe, achieve. And I got this in 2011 for commissions having earned up to 2010. And what's unique about this ring is that it took me 6 years to actually make my first million, but I made $1 million in 1 year on my 7th year. So I started to have that exponential effect. I started breaking records in the company. I became a national manager at 26 years old, youngest to ever do it. Company at that point had just gone public in the US. They're publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange. They're a $5 billion company. They're expanding locally, globally, internationally. And I'm at the forefront of this growth. And everybody's looking at me like, where the fuck did Ali come from? Like, he just literally came out of the blue. How did you open up 14 offices within a year? But it's like that old analogy of the bamboo tree, you know, underneath the soil for so many years. And then I just broke free and I started having this this growth spurt. So I rode that momentum as long as I could, got into my early 20s, 32. I earned about 8 figures in total lifetime take-home commissions. I wasn't responsible for payroll. So, you know, at one point I got up to 475 sales reps. They were all paid individually. My overhead was covered, and I'd take commissions every week. And, you know, it was building up 20,000 a week, 40,000 a week, 60, sometimes 80. I broke 100,000 in a week, and I kind of became immune to it. I actually got a bit arrogant, like, oh, I actually deserve more because I'm actually doing more than they compensate. And I didn't realize like the leverage and the power and the impact of this $1 billion foundational infrastructure. So I kind of got ahead of myself. And I always wanted to venture out to be an entrepreneur. Nowadays, that's the buzzword. People are self-proclaimed entrepreneurs because they update their bio to CEO, founder, entrepreneur, and visionary.
Even on LinkedIn, everybody's a CEO.
Yeah, everybody's a CEO. It's funny when their bio says entrepreneur or visionary, but I can't find any businesses they've actually built. But the problem is people like, they build their own narrative, they create their own story, and they believe it.
Sure.
You know, back in my day, titles carried weight. Even being an assistant manager. When I was an assistant manager, that was a big deal. And nowadays, everybody's the CEO of their own marketing group. You know, they spend a few $100 opening up an LLC. They get a contract with a company. They're a dime a dozen. But back then, there was value, and people valued integrity. People valued structure. People valued a lot of things that have been kind of lost through translation. So in any event, I got to the pinnacle of my career at 32 years old. At this point, I've achieved a lot of milestones professionally. I've made 8 figures in commissions. I've sold over 10 figures, $1 billion lifetime. I've become the poster child of this company, and I have fulfilled all of my dreams, mentally, spiritually, financially. I got married. I have 4 kids with my beautiful wife. Everything I wanted. I wanted the family life. I wanted the business life. I wanted the legacy of the family and the acumen in business, and everything just kind of like my life was absolutely fucking perfect at 32. Like I had no issues. Sure, I had ups and downs, and sure, like issues happened, and I had challenges and I had pressure, but I can't imagine my life being any better than it was at 32. And then everything just changed unexpectedly. I started getting a moving target on my back because at this point I'm the highest paid out of thousands of people in a $5 billion company. Board of directors, shareholders, they don't really like that. So what was once this culture of you can be like this guy or this girl and you can come inexperienced and uneducated from the ground floor and you can level up over the years and you can have this success was starting to dissipate. And they started to transform the company from 1099 to that of W-2. And I grew up like you did in the world of independent contractorship, right? I grew up like George of the Jungle. George get paid commissions. George get paid weekly. George control commissions. George don't like be employed. George Like that's where my frame of mind was. Essentially, I was an entrepreneur without even knowing it, right? And this transition came, and I'll spare you the details, but I was given a significant pay cut, and I couldn't accept it. So basically, I got terminated for declining my offer. Ended up going into federal litigation, which I've never been through a lawsuit in my life, and I'll never go through one after that again. I didn't realize how painstaking and agonizing it is, mentally, emotionally, and absolutely financially. So I went through that, and at 32, my life just got twisted upside down. At that point, me and my wife had 3 kids. The 4th one wasn't there yet. And we had a certain expectation and standard and cost of living as well to adhere to. And when you're 19 or 20 and you're living on your buddy's couch or in your parents' house, or you're living in a dorm room, or you can live out of your car, and these are all great stories. I got great stories too, like how I went to the gas station and had to find 4 quarters in my car to pump $1 of gas just to get me home. Everybody has those stories, and I love them. But when you're 32, you can't really do that when you have like a certain level of obligation and responsibility. So my life literally turned upside down. I went from winning awards, achieving every goal in my life, and having this picture perfect image I had in my head of where my life should be. And within the matter of 2 weeks, everything was gone. I didn't know what to do. I panicked. I actually went through some pretty severe depression, and I'm not one to get depressed. I'm always excited. I'm enthusiastic. I have this lust and passion for life. So, I just tried to deal with it as best as I could. First, I was in denial. Then I tried to deal with it with drinking and ignoring. And I went through so many different cycles for a few months of how do I figure out what to do with my life. So I didn't really choose to be an entrepreneur, although I wanted to. It happened because that decision was made for me. But inevitably in life, true character is revealed during moments of despair, moments of desperation, and moments when things aren't going right. So I've always had the rhino mentality. And when you think of a rhinoceros, the immediate things that comes to mind is you think of the big horns and the tough skin. But the reason I call myself a rhinopreneur versus an entrepreneur is the concept of a rhino is that they charge forward. Not only do they have that thick skin, but they have undeniable laser focus. And when they focus in on a target, they absolutely charge forward. And there is no way when a rhino is zoned in to what they're moving towards, the only way to stop the rhino is literally to take its life. And that's how startup life was for me. It was brutal. And there's so many times I wanted to veer away and get off course because I had never done it. In my mind, it's like, oh my God, I'm the chief executive officer. I'm the founder, and everybody wants to be about that, but it's a very difficult transition. So I made this transition. I didn't know what to get into. I didn't have a product. I didn't have a company. I didn't have anything. I got into water filtration. I saw a really big value in being able to change the quality of water for individuals across America. I connected with a scientist. He was the first scientist to successfully extrude a carbon block. He created the technology inside of the refrigerator filter. And my thought was, well, wait a minute. How come nobody's created the refrigerator filter on steroids for the whole home, where you can remove all contaminants, chemicals, and heavy metals out of the water and give purified water to every sink, every faucet, every tap? So at this point, I had never raised capital. I didn't even know any of the terms and what they meant. I was Googling, what's a PPM? Okay, private placement memorandum. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I raise money? And I said, you know what I should do is I should probably go invest my own money. So I self-funded the venture to the tune of 2.75 lifetime so far that's been contributed. in terms of financial equity into the company. So we had to create a product. We had to set up manufacturing. We had to get tooling, plating, and machinery. We had to do lab testing, product development. We had to get government certifications. We had to spend 7 figures before we even did a fucking sale. And that was very gut-wrenching, because I could have gone and sold somebody else's product, but I decided to want to become a manufacturer and distributor of the product as well. So everything was really kind of self-funded and self-taught. As I stayed self-disciplined through the early startup phase. And obviously door-to-door is in my DNA. I'm like, I'm not selling this online. This is not going to be sold consultatively. This is not going to be sold at home shows and trade shows and county fairs. We can do all that stuff. This is not going to be sold at a kiosk. This is going to be sold door-to-door. And I'd never heard of a door-to-door water company. So it really motivated me to spearhead into that space. So I headquartered myself in Newport Beach, California, and we built our retail arm, American Smart Home. And I kept it open-themed, smart home, not smart water, because I didn't want to limit myself. It's conflicting nowadays because a lot of people actually think I'm a security company versus a water filtration company, but I wouldn't change it. So we launched the company, and we ended up growing in 5 states: California, Arizona, Texas, New York, and Maryland. I opened up to 14 offices, 5 states, aggressive, exponential growth within the first 12 months. And there was a competitive side of me that said, I just left this big opportunity with this billion-dollar player, and I'm going to keep up with them, right? I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to show them why I should have stayed there. And I grew beyond my means. I depleted my bank account. I had an aggressive burn rate. I took no salary and worked for free. And I just started liquidating everything I have and throwing it into the business, growing, because to me, growth was in the numbers and in the ego of what I felt of growing it. And yet again, I got another hard lesson in entrepreneurship that I grew beyond my means. I built no foundation. I had not developed a business model. I was just giving out my channel partners dealership agreements. I was making everybody a vendor. You're an IBO, you're an IBO. You want to sell water, everybody can sell water. And I had to sit down towards the end of 2017. And I had done 7 figures our first year. I had no profit. I had no salary because I grew aggressively. And I had to sit down here and give my ego a check and say, I don't think you're doing things right. You spent your entire career building organically people from the ground up. And now all of a sudden you're trying to grow your business artificially. You're trying to bring people from the outside in. So what I recognized is that I never pioneered my business model. I didn't originate what it actually took. In fact, I never ran a water office. I barely sold at the door, which is like not indicative of my personality because I always lead by example. I was caught up with conference calls, spreadsheets, creating payroll systems, installation, administration, getting in-house financing. I was caught up with everything except for sales. There was 100 things in business I didn't know. I learned the other 99 things, but sales is what I didn't learn. And when we had it, it was short-lived. And I started getting a lot of clout in my first year. I had these really big players. I had an ex-Dallas Cowboy, reformed real estate mogul and serial entrepreneur that had 200 sales reps that were selling other products that started adding water into the mix. I got the minority owner of the Washington Capitals, son of a billionaire and international hotel developer in Maryland, one of the top 5 wealthiest affluent cities in National Harbor in the U.S., and he had celebrity connections with Dr. Dre, Beyonce. They were going to push my water product out there with Serena Williams. So I got caught up in the hype of, I'm a CEO. I can finally wear suits and I don't have to change into uniforms. I got a business card. I got equity. I'm the man. And I got caught up in my own shit. Same shit that happened to me when I was 25 years old. And I started connecting with white collar folks to build my business when what I really needed was blue collar folks. So at the end of 2017, I had a couple of partners that I bought out and we legally separated from. And like Thomas Edison said, it's just another opportunity to intelligently begin again. So I created American Smart Home 2.0, and I said, you know what, this time I'm gonna pay attention. I watched a movie, and I'll end off on this and give it back to you. It's a great movie. The movie's called The Founder. If you've watched it, with Michael Keaton, and he plays Ray Kroc, right? So the McDonald's franchise, which was close to home to you before and close to home to me now, opened up in San Bernardino,
yeah.
right, with the McDonald's brothers. They successfully replicated the first store into a second store. Two brothers managing two locations. It was not a franchise model. They attempted to do it. They weren't successful. Ray Kroc was selling shakers, business to business. And he had this 6 multi-shaker device that he was trying to sell to these restaurants. And he went in and did a number on the McDonald's brothers in their original store, and he caught their attention. But more importantly, McDonald's caught his attention. And the systematic process that they created really appealed to him. And he said, you know what? We got to franchise this model out. We got to create a systematic, effective, and efficient approach to create burger, shake, and a fries and be able to create the concept of fast food. He was the pioneer in the space of creating fast food. So he convinced the McDonald's brothers to go out and do what he does. At that time, he had some very, reputable colleagues, part of the country club that he associated with. So initially, he went to the people that had the money. He went to the white collar folks, right? And says, here's my idea. Here's my model. I need your money. Give me a capital injection, and I'm going to give everybody stores. That's what he did, and he grew aggressively and opened up multiple franchise locations. But like every great visionary and entrepreneur, he's very attentive to detail, very OCD, borderline abrasive. And he started looking at these stores, the white collar stores, the country club stores he opened up, and started realizing something. They're not following the vision of what he laid out. It's not the family fun environment he thought. People are loitering and littering in the parking lot. They're selling items off the menu like fried chicken.
Remember that part?
Yeah. So the entire vision of what he wanted completely changed. The dynamic wasn't there. So he lost all of his marbles and decided to go and abruptly shut down all of the country club franchises. What he did immediately after is he went around the country and started connecting and building relationships with blue-collar individuals. Plumbers, mechanics, small business owners, family men at that, because he felt like these were the individuals that can contribute the sweat equity that was needed in order to carry out his vision. The rest is history of what happened from that point to where we are now. McDonald's has now become the single largest franchise and concurrently their largest real estate holdings company in the world with over 25,000 locations and probably growing. That stat's probably a couple years old. But to me, Ray Kroc was the epitome of organic growth. Even took Ted Turner, right? A 17-year-old high school dropout. Fred Turner, not Ted Turner. That's CNN. Fred Turner. And a 17-year-old dropout flipping burgers at one of the corporate stores and took him under his wing for over 4 decades. And after Ray Kroc passed away, he took the role of senior vice chairman of the largest company in the world, a 17-year-old flipping burgers. So that to me illustrated what I already knew, but it was a reminder. You have to grow this organically. Other people are not going to do it for you. So that was right around the time when that picture was taken. And I said, fuck it. I can still wear the suits in the mornings, but I got to bring a gym bag. And I got to change in the gym bag. And every day I got to go out there and run my own office. I got to become the top salesperson. And I did. I broke every record in the company as a sales rep. I got to be a sales manager. So what I did is I rented a minivan and I started driving the minivan every day to work instead of the nice exotic car. And I would drive out a team every day. I would have new agents and new reps that I would train. I would be doing the interview process myself. So the recruiter would shadow me. I'd be taking everybody into the field. I would do the training class in class, and then I would do the training in field. So that's why I took that picture, because the image that was depicted is like I'm the CEO of this company. But I'm like, no, wait a minute. CEO is not chief executive officer. It's chief everything officer. I have to do everything myself. So doesn't mean I can't delegate and I can't give responsibility. I have to learn every role. I can't expect people that have never built a door-to-door water business to create a payroll system. I have to think from a perspective of a sales rep. If I'm a sales rep, how do I want to get paid? What type of visibility do I want to see in my payroll? What am I looking for? So I started analyzing everything from the perspective of a sales rep. So that's how we built our distribution, our installation, our manufacturing, our administration, our payroll. There wasn't a book. There wasn't like this book, Business 101, of what to do. I had to literally create it from the ground up. So I did every role in the company, from door-to-door sales rep to recruiter to administrator. I literally did everything because I wanted to learn it and then implement it. And now when I teach it to other people, it's something I've actually done and I've experienced that success. Because when I didn't do that, and the most amount of sales I'd get in a week was like 2 or 3 water sales, and everybody else was my eyes and ears, I had to believe them because I had nothing else to go based on, until I took the average week of 2 water sales and I started doing 4 sales in a day and started breaking records and blowing everybody's mind. That was the single defining moment that my business started turning around, when I started leading by example.
Be the leader, speed of the team.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think one thing I'm kind of shivering inside as I hear your story, because I won't make this about me, but me and you are cut from the same cloth to the core.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stories that you tell me are just really strike it home with me. I think what I love most about what I've heard so far, and maybe you don't even realize it, but you spent most of the time now talking about your failures.
Yeah, I didn't realize
and I
that.
think that's I
Yeah.
think there's something to say about that, because most people, they want to be on their Instagram and they want to post a picture of them doing all these special things, or they're at the club, or they've got this new car, or all this kind of things, and they don't want to talk about their failure.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson that I learned when I hit a bottom point in my life a couple of years ago, that you don't have to be afraid of your failures.
Yeah.
Your failures are what define you. And I love hearing all of your failures, and what I love the most is your eagerness to get up again,
Yeah.
and even with more fight. And so I love that. And I loved how you talked about today in front of the group. There's failing and there's failure.
Yeah.
And
Is there a recap on that?
Failing is, a verb. You're doing something and you're failing at it, but that's not the end game. Only when you make the decision that, this isn't for me, or I can't do something, only then is it a failure. And that was a very powerful piece.
Yeah.
I love that. Where do you think you got that from?
I had an award ceremony for the last company I worked with, and I was told I was being presented this Breitling watch for having earned $5 million in commissions, and I had to put a speech together, and I had this really long, drawn-out speech, and I don't do well when I prepare. That's probably why I didn't prepare too much for today's speech. I put up the slideshow, but I like to go with the moment and feel the crowd and the audience, and be able to provide whatever value at that time that my instinct tells me to. So I wrote up this entire speech, and I'm like, it's too rehearsed. I don't want to do this, and all these like coined phrases I've heard over the years. So I said, all right, you know what? On the bus ride over, we were in Mexico, riding over to this extravagant gala dinner with hundreds of people, and I was accepting a dozen awards that night. I was just sitting on the bus, and I said, I'm just going to try to break down my last 13 years into 3 simple points. What are they? And I'm sitting down. I'm like, all right, what's the 3 lessons I learned in door-to-door sales? And the first one that came to mind is what I'm famous for saying is, become comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And then I'm like, all right, what else? I'm like, the second thing I learned is the only constant is change. That's the only thing, if you want to get comfortable with change, because it's inevitable. It's going to happen all the time. Like Charles Darwin once said, it's not the most intelligent of species that are going to progress and survive. It's the ones that are the most adaptive to change. So that really stuck out to me. And then the third one, and I'm thinking about, let me talk about like how great I am or all the like achievements I've had and all this stuff. And I'm like, actually, I've had more times I failed than more times I succeeded. And then I just started thinking about the words fail, failing, failure, all the different connotations of it. And I said, well, listen, people use it in the same context, but it's actually not the same. Failing with an ing is a verb. It's an action. It's part of the journey. It's something that's happening along the way. But failure is like a noun. It's a destination. It's the end result. Failure is basically not falling. Failure is falling, but refusing to get back up. That's the only difference. Failing turns into failure when you stop. Failing remains failing as long as you continue going. And then I just started embracing that, and I got up on stage, and the one thing that struck home with everybody is I said, I just want to let everybody know, to 500 people, and they're all waiting for that moment, right? That one sentence or that one phrase that's going to be what my speech is about.
And you made him wait to put the watch on.
Exactly. You saw it at the beginning, right? I said the one thing I want everybody to know about me is I am a professional at failing. And people were caught off guard. They didn't know how to respond to that because usually you don't have a negative connotation to something that you're trying to present as uplifting. And it really kind of threw people off. What do you mean you're a professional at failing? No, you're a professional at succeeding. No, I'm actually not. I'm a professional at failing. You only see my successes, but I've actually failed more than I've succeeded. So I started to embrace that to my core. And I said, you know what? This is something that needs to be not only embraced, it's something that needs to be exposed, explained, and exploited to other people. People need to know this, that there is a relatability that we all share in common, is that we all want to be successful, but we all fail along the way. And ever since I've made that transition mentally, it's resonated. And that's where I get a lot of people that have this like emphatic motivation to want to listen to me because they feel like I'm giving authentic and unfiltered information because I'm not telling them what they want to hear. I'm telling them what they think but they've never heard before out loud from somebody else.
Yeah, you're not speaking from a book, you're speaking from experience.
Yeah.
It's something I talk about with whenever I do a training class with sales reps. You know, I didn't learn this in school.
Yeah.
I learned this in the school of hard knocks.
Exactly.
You know, and I love what you say about the mindset of it because really failure can be looked at in such a broad range of circumstances. And I think the one that puts it in perspective for me is Thomas Edison, where he says, I didn't fail 10,000 times to build a light bulb. I successfully figured out 10,000 ways a light bulb doesn't work. And it really is just a mindset.
Yeah.
You know, and I listen to your failures and how you learn from them, and I reflect back on mine. And sometimes we get caught up in the moment of this is so tragic and this is life ending. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And it takes, it really takes a lot to take a step back and say, you know what, how can I do this differently? And I love hearing that you say you've done it, and then 2.0. I love the 2.0 thing.
Yeah. I'm at 4.0 now, by the way. Just so you know, 2 years
so
later.
Far.
So far. I'm at 4.0 right now. But that's all it is. It's just reinventing yourself. I didn't think I had to do that at 32. I thought my life was made. And it changes all the time. And every time I have like a significant, fundamental, and paradigm shift is when I go through a very traumatic experience where I lose something really big, or I fail at something that was really important to me. I had been a successful business dude for 12 or 13 years. I just thought naturally it's going to happen. And, I lost everything. I went through and, social media depicts this different image. So people have a different image of me, right? They're like, there's the really high energy dude that does the Ric Flair, that has the bright suits, the bright personality, the bright cars. Shotguns Monsters, yeah. He's got a big family. And that's true. That is to the core of who I am. But they're seeing the 10% highlight reel. entrepreneurship is 90% eating shit, 10% eating caviar. The internet makes you feel like you're behind because nobody's posting their failures, right? Nobody's posting eating shit. They're only posting eating caviar. And now everybody's this self-proclaimed, successful, incredible, glorious life that they're living, but you actually don't know what's happening behind the scenes. 2017 and 2018, by far, were the two most difficult years of my life. I went from having record income levels. 2017, a lot of people don't know this, my 1099, my W-2, my year end for 2017 was 0, and 2018 was 0. I've actually spent the last 2 years working for free. Actually, working for free would be a privilege for me.
Watering the bamboo tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Working for free would be a privilege for me. Most people go to work to get paid. I wish I could work for free. The last 2 years, I've been paying to go to work. I've been watering that bamboo tree because I understand what it is that I'm actually building with American Smart Home, with the water filtration, and now with Smart Home Pro, with contractor financing. I know I'm laying the groundwork for a $1 billion concept. In my mind, I'm living this moment that one day I will have an IPO. I will be at the New York Stock Exchange ringing that bell, and that's a moment that I hold in my mind. Now, the tough part is I am very creative, I'm very eccentric, and I'm very motivated to do so many things. So I typically bite off a lot more than I can chew, and I try to do 20 things at once. I want to have another kid. I want to have another business. I want to write a book. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a business speaker. I want to do this.
Squirrel.
Yeah, squirrel. Look at the birds. So I have to kind of be disciplined in that route. But I would say to the people that see what's going on, the lifestyle I have now and the mindset I have is a result of the years I had prior. But, although I've gone through, second year cracking 8 figures, I've actually pulled out no money from the equity that I have in the company. And now going into 2019, and it sounds funny that I say this, but for the first time in over 2 years, I am finally being paid for my services to my own company. So I'm finally starting to do withdrawals versus just deposits. And I went through a very tumultuous time. I hated a lot of things about my life in the past couple of years. I became very negative as a husband. I became very negative as a father. I had a lot of challenges that I went through. I had a lot of resentment, a lot of negativity and built up anger. And I just thought things are going to be a lot easier. I'm successful. I've made money. I already know what to do. And it was the complete opposite. And now that I've spent that 2 years, it's literally been, I'd say the past 6 weeks, it's been very drama free. The past 6 weeks are, ironically, 6 weeks to bamboo tree. The last 6 weeks, I've been experiencing exponential growth. I'm having record weeks, record months. My public speaking career is starting to take off. A lot of things are going right, not because of this new year, new me bullshit. It's not because it's January and beginning of the year. It just coincidentally happened that way. But it's like, I spent, I don't know, a year and 46 weeks just eating shit. And now I'm going through like the 6 weeks of, eating caviar. And I know it's going to be short-lived because it's going to go right back to what I did before. But I had this misconception growing up in business and in life that at one point I would be at a stage of perfection, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially, educationally. I'd be at this moment of perfection. So I would always pursue perfection, not realizing it actually doesn't exist. And when I got more mature, I recognized that I'm never going to be perfect. Everybody messes up. Everybody fucks up, including me. I make more wrong decisions than a lot of people would know. I probably make more wrong decisions than everybody in here. Maybe not you, maybe equivalent, but I make a lot of wrong decisions. The reason why is because I make more decisions. It's like that, if anybody ever saw the interview with Babe Ruth when he was being interviewed and inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, his nickname during that time was the Home Run King. And when they asked him, Babe, what's the secret to your success? What's the secret sauce? And he says, I'm not the most talented player. I just swing more often than everybody else because he concurrently got inducted into the Hall of Fame with a record of the most amount of home runs in Major League Baseball at that time. But at the exact same time, he also held the record concurrently for the most amount of strikeouts. It's like Wayne Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So once I got to the frame of mind that I don't always have to make the right decisions, I just got to make decisions more often than other people do. And as long as I make the right decisions more often than I make the wrong decisions, then I'm okay. So I started pursuing progression, not pursuing perfection. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I heard a story about that actually not too long ago on Tony Robbins' tape of this general. And there had been a conflict forever, and both sides have spent tons of time researching which way the decision should go. And the general brought everybody in, and he said, "So what do you guys think?" And like they said, "Oh, we're conflicted. We don't know. Part of it is this, and here's the data to do this." And he goes, "Okay, great, do that one." And he left. And they had been trying to figure this out forever. And so his secretary came up to him and he said, "Hey, like you didn't even hear the whole thing. You don't know the load." And he goes, "How could you make a decision like that?" And I said, "I could clearly see that you guys were struggling to make a decision. So I just made a decision.
Yeah.
Is it the right decision? We'll find out.
Yep.
But if it's the wrong decision, we'll fix it. The worst you can do is stand on the fence."
That's right.
So completely agree with you. And I think that's...
And to throw in real quick, Abraham Lincoln, one of his most infamous quotes that I live and die by is, he said that I make my decisions quickly and I change them rarely. So it's just about being able to have the courage to make that decision, because most people, they avoid decisions, right? They're avoiders by nature. And if I can give you an analogy, and I'll give it back to you, is you have this river of life, okay? And everybody gets into this river of life, and we're all given the same tools. We're given a paddle boat. So you're given this boat with a couple of paddles, and you sit inside of your rowboat, and you get pushed into the river of life. And you have the opportunity, you have the ability to make a conscious decision, pull out your paddles, and go in whatever direction that you choose. But most people, they don't do that. They have what I call the go with the flow mentality. In my opinion, the only thing that goes with the flow are dead fish, right? So you want to be able to make a decision, but most people don't. They go with the flow and the current of the river. So they take their paddles, they put it inside the boat, and they just start looking around. Oh, this is really cool. And the boat starts choosing whatever direction the flow and current of the river is going. Now, before you notice it, because you've avoided making a decision, you're at the edge of a cliff. You're literally 5 feet away from Niagara Falls, and you're about to fall down dozens of feet to your demise. And now we become reactive and try to pull out those paddles and try to row against the current, but it's too late. And you're going to fall. And that fall could be the fall of a relationship, the fall of a business, the fall of a marriage, the fall of a friendship. You're going to take that fall. And then you're going to survive the fall. And then the waters are going to be calm again. And you're going to say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Thank God I survived." And then what you don't do is you still don't take out the paddles and decide where to go next. And yet again, you go with that flow over and over and over again. So what I've recognized in life, people don't like making decisions. Why? People fear things, right? And my acronyms of fear, FEAR, is false evidence appearing real. We take this God-given gift of our imagination and we create the worst possible scenario. That's how people naturally are. You start a new opportunity, door-to-door commission. What if I don't sell? What if I don't make money? Well, what if you do? And what if you make more money than you've ever made? Naturally, we are negative beings. You're on the highway. It's 8 p.m. at night. It's dark. You're driving in the express lane. There's an 18-wheeler truck and it's raining on the highway and you're about to pass them. You got the truck on one side, the guardrail on the other side. Automatically, you clench up your fist and you hold on to the steering wheel and you start having negative thoughts of what happens if this truck hits me and I go into the guardrail? What happens if I crash? You're crossing a green light. You're not focused on getting on the other side. You're focused on all the obstructions along the way. What happens if this, if that? So if you're using your imagination anyways, don't worry. Create the best possible scenario. Don't give yourself anxiety. Don't give yourself fear. People fear the unknown. They fear the consequences. They fear not knowing what the outcome's going to be. That's why they avoid making decisions.
Absolutely.
80% of the population walks inside of a snack bar or a gas station. They can't decide what pack of gum to get, what chocolate bar, what drink. It's funny, it's comical actually. People spend 5 minutes in a gas station trying to decide what to get because there's so many options too. Do I want Gatorade? Do I want Powerade? Do I want a carbonated drink? Do I want a bottle? Do I want a can? Do I want the tall one? Do I want the short one? What color do I want right now? Do I want to get 2 for $5 or 1 for $3? So many decisions, so many options. That same 80% will walk inside of a fast food restaurant, a McDonald's, a Burger King. They'll stand in front of the cashier looking at the menu for 2 minutes with a deer in headlights look because they're having a hard time deciding between, do I get the Big Mac or the McChicken? I think I'll get the oh, no, I'm not in line. Yeah, go ahead. And literally, you end up ordering the exact same thing. That same 80% of the population.
The same restaurant you've been to a million times
Yeah,
before and
you order
already
the
knew
same
the menu.
thing. I ask my wife. I don't look at menus. I go into a restaurant. Are you guys ready to order? Yeah. What do you want? I don't know yet. Let's look. And I look at it. I love to order under pressure. What do you recommend besides everything? Cool. I like this. I like that. Great. Give me the lamb. Done. I don't want to consume my time with these decisions going back and forth. 80% of the population, probably women, are more guilty than men. Stand in front of a closet full of clothes every single morning. They can't decide what to wear. People don't like making decisions. So I learned 2 things. 1, stop avoiding decisions. Make decisions and make them more often. Number 2, I don't have to be right on every decision. Yeah. I just have to be right more often than I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I agree with you that the biggest contributor to that indecision making is being afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And I think when you get the mentality of 1, it's okay to fail, and 2, I'm not afraid to fail, it's almost like you empower yourself to grow.
Yeah.
You know, and I learned that probably in the first couple of years of my entrepreneur life. I was so afraid of either making a bad decision or making a decision that would hurt somebody's feelings or make a decision that would make somebody not support me. And I finally realized that you're not going to make everybody happy. You've got to make the company happy. Mm-hmm. And you've got to be willing to jump into the mud to get to the other side.
So true.
And so it's definitely a very, very great topic to go over when it comes to entrepreneurs. And especially in the society now where everybody's Instagramming and, you know, there's no talks of failures.
No.
There's only talks of this. We had, at our last rally, I don't know if you've heard of a gentleman named C.T. Fletcher.
Yeah.
We had C.T. Fletcher at a rally, and I went to pick him up at the airport. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, I said, man, C.T., I got to tell you, I'm starstruck. I said, I have watched so many of your videos. We watch them before our meetings to get excited for the day. And I said, I am like, I got to tell you, I'm tongue-tied right now. I'm starstruck. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know what? You probably wouldn't have said that a couple years ago when I was living in my mom literally had to feed me. And I lived at her house.
Wow.
And he said, I'm a 50-year overnight sensation.
Yeah, that's
what he
powerful.
told me.
Wow.
And so I love your message of not doing what's easy, but working hard and getting somewhere. I agree with you that we've kind of lost that over the years. And, you know, my parents were literally the same as yours. You know, you go to college, you find a good job with that company, and 40 years later you retire and get that check. And my personal story, just share a little bit with me.
Yeah.
My first one was I worked at Safeway, a grocery store.
Oh, wow.
And I
We
bagged
used to have
groceries.
Safeway in the west coast of Canada, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
At
BC.
that big grocery store. I think there's actually one right down the street. But I bagged groceries, I stocked milk. I even had to smell bad milk when people came in to make sure.
I actually worked at a grocery store, too, in the meat department.
Yeah, clean up aisle 3, that was me. And there was always 2 other people at any given time doing the same job that I did.
Yeah.
And what I noticed over time was as they start to realize that I was a hard worker, they started to manipulate and take advantage of the situation. Before I knew
That's
it,
right.
I was doing all the work, and they were finding the blind spots in the camera to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
And that didn't bother me, but what really bothered me and what actually kickstarted my career in sales and entrepreneurship is when we got our checks. And we all got the same check. And that really bugged me to my core.
Yeah, I can
It's like,
imagine.
man, I don't mind putting in all this work, but why is it that you're making the same amount as me when I'm putting in more effort?
Yeah.
And naturally I gravitated into sales. And I started to realize that we can create something outside of what somebody says you're worth. And so I'm curious where, and I don't know if you've really found that one scenario or maybe that one story, that one thing in your life that made you have the work ethic that you have. Have you pinpointed that?
You know, I'm just reflecting back right now. If I could pinpoint a moment that really, I don't know if this is the moment, because there's the moment that triggered me to take this action, and then there was the moment that I got the result from the action. So the moment that I got triggered to put in the action, I don't think that's what defined me, but the end result empowered me. And I think that was probably one of the earliest moments I can remember. Because what happens growing up is we all have this desire level, right? And as you get older, you have the ability to fulfill your own desires because you're in control of it. When you're younger, you don't. You got to ask for things, right? Like, our daughter Melania, she's 3 years old. She watches the YouTube videos, and every 10 minutes an ad comes on with a new toy. And every time the ad comes on, she looks at me, Daddy, can I have that? Can I go there? Can I have that? My response is, only if you're a good girl, Melania, you can have it. Yay! And then the ad's over and she's back to the video again. But that's what kids do. Daddy, mommy, can I have this? Can I have this new bike? Can I have this new gaming system? Can I have this new shirt? Even happens with our 13-year-old. He's like, oh, can I get this new jacket? I just got honor roll. They're asking for things because they have the desire level, but they can't fulfill it because they don't have the currency to be able to do it, right? So, very early on, I started working because I wanted to have things that I couldn't have. When I was 12 years old, I wanted a Super Nintendo, and I still had an Atari, and we couldn't afford it. So I'm like, how do I do this? How do I get the Super Nintendo? Do I steal it? Do I convince my parents that can't afford it? I need money. How do I get money? I'm 12. So I just started venturing out. 12 years old, got my first job, going door to door, dropping off flyers. I get 5 cents a flyer. Then I learned the art of leverage, not knowing it at 12 years old. Instead of going and knocking door to door in neighborhoods with doors that were 20 feet apart, I'd go into apartment buildings because I'd hit 20 houses in a single floor, and I'd make a lot of money doing that. Then I turned 14. And all right, well, I want more things. How do I do this? I gotta keep making money. So I got a job at this place called Canadian Choice Windows and Doors and started doing telemarketing. And I couldn't be on payroll because I'm 14, so they had to pay me cash. So they had this Russian owner, Igor, and yeah, just so suiting, right? Canadian Choice Windows and Doors with Igor. And he would pay me cash. He'd pay me $5 an hour. And I was the youngest one there. And that's when I started learning the 2-option close because exposing my age, I'd open up a phone book, right? And I'd be calling people. Oh, hey, Mr. Johnson. Hi, this is Ali Zamany from Canadian Choice Windows and Doors. I think last year I spoke with you and possibly your spouse, and you guys were discussing getting some windows and doors. Can't remember if it was a window downstairs or a garage door. Anyways, we're in your area the rest of this week giving free estimates. What day would work better for you, Wednesday or Thursday? Pause. Yeah, we were thinking about that, getting a garage door. Wednesday would work. Perfect. What time is better for you? I have a 2 o'clock and a 4 o'clock opening at 14 years old. And then every time you got a lead that would turn into a sale, you would get an extra $1 an hour. So then I started getting older. Then I became 15. Got a job at a gas station, pumping people's gas for a living and wiping their windows down. Then I became 16. I got a job at a factory, my first legitimate job. I'd go to school from 8 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. My job would start at 4 and I'd work till midnight, 8-hour shift. I was in a factory with people in their 40s and 50s, and I was folding boxes and I was assembling picture frames together for $6 an hour at that time. And at that point, my desires became bigger. It wasn't a Super Nintendo. It wasn't a new pair of shoes. I'm 16 now. I want to get a fucking car. So I had to save up. $6 an hour pre-tax is not a lot of money. So I ended up saving up for 8 months. Got my first big purchase. Bought a 1987 Honda Accord. It was beige, unrust.
Nice.
It was stained cloth interior. It had the flip lights and everything. And I got it for a whopping $1,500. And that was a proud moment that, wow, I can go to work and I can collect currency, and then I can use this to achieve things that I wanted to get. So it started becoming very powerful at that moment, how my work ethic started getting instilled. Plus, when I'm trying to juggle this with school, it was overwhelming because I'm going to school from 8 to 3:30, working from 4 to 12, coming home, and I used to work out excessively when I was younger. I used to be able to bench 325 pounds at the age of 17. I was very fit back in the day. And so I'm going to the gym till 1 in the morning. Then I'm coming home and trying to do homework I didn't catch up on. That's where I probably got used to the 4 hours of sleep a night. So at that time, it's just my desire to want to have a better life, knowing that there wasn't any other option. My only outlet was to find jobs. I've done all those things, mowing lawns and knocking on people's doors and shoveling their driveways and all that stuff. And then as I got older, I had to start contributing to the bills as well and helping out because I saw my mom struggle, right? Single mom, working a couple of cash jobs, and we're on public assistance.
But your blueprint had already been made.
I didn't realize
you
that
had
at the
already
time.
attached to hard work, to getting results and getting what you want. I remember when I got my first car, our next door neighbor had a 19.
What car was it?
It was a 1985 Camaro.
Nice.
And
It's pretty impressive for a first car.
Right? No, it was a total pile. It was one of the V6s.
Oh, okay.
And this is in Hawaii. It was rusted to hell. It probably had 200,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
It was $800.
Nice.
All right. And it was my next door neighbor. And I remember going to my mom saying, "I'm ready for a car. I want a car. Can I have a car?"
Yeah.
And she looked me square in the eyes and she said, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Anything else?" And I said, "Yeah, it's $800." And she goes, "Go get a job."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I play football. I would get up in the morning to go to seminary, then I'd go to school, then I would play football, and I mean, it's dark when I leave and it's dark when I get home. How am I going to get a job? And she goes, "Well, that's your problem. If you want a car, you better figure that out." And I did.
Yeah.
And I worked at a motor shop, and that I later on in my life realized that I'm grateful that my mom didn't just give me that $800.
Yeah.
Because if she did,
Yeah.
I may not have the work ethic that I have today.
That's right.
And I remember getting the keys to that car,
Yeah.
and the excitement that I had, and the level of progression on, okay, well, if I could get this,
Yeah.
then why can't I get this?
Yeah. you
And
level up.
I mean, it's progressing to $500,000 car.
Yeah.
Sitting outside, and it all stemmed from an $800 Camaro.
Yeah.
That my mind decided it could do.
Yeah. And you
And-
could control.
Yeah.
If my mom had the money, knowing the type of person she is, she probably would have gave it. So I'm actually very grateful that we didn't have the money, so she couldn't give it, and I had to go and get it on my own.
My mom was both. Even if she did have the money, she wouldn't give it to me. And she wanted to make me work. She didn't want to do it. So really touched by your story.
Thank you.
I knew when I saw you at Door to Door Con, there was I learned at my Tony Robbins event to put yourself in proximity of the right people. And I love what you said today about if you're the smartest person in the room, you're making mistakes. You got to level up.
Yeah,
you
you're
got to
in the
close
wrong
the
room.
gap and be around those types of people.
That's
so
right.
I appreciate you spending the time with us. I've got a couple more questions for
Yeah,
you.
let's shoot.
What would you say is your favorite book that you've read?
Okay, so there's a lot of books. In fact, on Audible, it tracks my stats. And for 2018, I spent a total of 7 days and 12 hours. So let me see the math. That's 7 times 24. That's 140, another 28, 168, plus another 12. It's 180 hours of listening. So I listen to a lot of books. I've read a lot of books. Some of them I've read over and over again. There's all these fancy books that I can name. Honestly, to me, my favorite book I've ever read is probably the shortest book and probably a book that you may or may not recognize. It was a book written by Og Mandino called The Greatest Salesman in the World. And it's a small book. It's $7.99. It was one of the first books I ever read. I've actually read the book. I've lost track now after 30. I've read it in excess of 30 times. You can read the book in less than 2 hours. And it's this story of an ancient camel boy that becomes the chosen one. And he finds these scrolls. And in every scroll, there's a principle. And that principle can apply in our business and in our life. And some of my favorite scroll is I will persist until I succeed. They have other scrolls like Today I will be master of my emotions. Today I will multiply my value 100-fold. Failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough. And the way that the book works to do it effectively is you have to read, each chapter is a scroll. So you essentially have to read each chapter every day for 30 days. So if you read 10 scrolls, it takes you 10 months to read the book. But then that becomes part of who you are. And it's been probably one of the most impactful books I've ever read. And I really recommend that. Outside of that, I mean, I'm a big fan of Brian Tracy, hence my topic on psychology of selling and the mindset of a champion. I just love learning about the brain, the unconscious mind. So Brian Tracy is really good about psychology. He breaks down effective communication. Psycho-Cybernetics is a good one by Maxwell Maltz. That's an
Reminded me a lot of The Secret.
Yeah, definitely did.
Yeah.
And I like The Secret, but I like the Master Key System by Charles Haanel even more. Anthony Robbins is always a great selection. Zig Ziglar, I'm an OG. I love Zig Ziglar. I love Tom Hopkins. Joe Girard as well. These guys are icons in their own right. And then obviously the Kiyosaki's, Napoleon Hill's. And I like Robert Greene, The 50 Laws of Power, 30 Strategies of War. Kind of gives you a different perspective. Now, a lot of it's very abrasive and manipulative in that book, but there's a lot of powerful content that comes out of it. But I would probably say, my favorite author through and through with all the books that I've read definitely has to be John Maxwell. I think those books have resonated with me more than anybody else because it's practical information. It's not situated around hype, and it gives you like step-by-step directions. And the way that he phrases it, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, or the 5 levels of leadership, that's been probably the most impactful books I've read that have helped me out in leadership. So I try to find a good balance. I try to find books on leadership, sales, attitude, wealth. I just try to find like a mindset variety of different books that I can do. But I'm not good at reading. That's why, I'm good at reading, but I don't have the patience. I do the Audible thing and I listen to it and I absorb more.
The other great thing about Audible is net time, right? While you're driving, you can listen to it. You're getting 2 things done at once. I know you mentioned that at the gym.
Yeah,
you listen to that.
Yeah.
And so that's awesome. So I think my last question for you, I've been curious ever since I met you. Where did you get this signature move from?
Which one?
This woo! Where did that come from?
Being in direct marketing and door-to-door sales, it requires an obscene amount of positivity, passion, and enthusiasm. And when I was younger, in my early days, I didn't have the experience because, to get into leadership, you lead by example or you lead by the experience that you've had. I didn't have that. I was a 20-year-old kid. Nobody wanted to follow me, right? And I just started recognizing that me leading by example obviously did well because it gave me credibility. But I always tried to conform myself to this prim and professional version of me. And I just felt uncomfortable in my own skin. And naturally, I'm eccentric by nature. It's just, I've been this way since I've been young. I'm fucking passionate about everything. I'll be in the house and my wife is like, there's a spider, and I'll bring the kids around and there's a spectacle of how to catch the spider. Everything is a big deal for me. Everything is just over the top. So I just started embracing who I was. And over the years, as I just started exuding my positivity and my energetic nature, people were drawn to me. And over the years, I've had a variety of different things I've done. I went to an Anthony Robbins seminar, and he says, everyone's got to have a power move. What's your power move? When I was walking on the hot coals, which you probably did the fire walk as well. And, I'm like, I got to get something I got to be able to create something that is an expression of my energy. Because you guys only see 20% of it on the outside. The other 80% is literally burning on the inside, right? It's like a tea kettle. The water's boiling on the inside, but you're just seeing a bit of steam coming on the outside. So I just wanted to have a way to express myself. And I don't know, I think I had a record sales day, and I just got up in front of my team or whatever. And someone says, how do you feel? And they had all these managers coming up. And this guy's like, oh, yeah, I want to thank this person and this happened. And it's all these staged speeches, right? And I get up there and they're like, Ali, how do you feel? And the way I interpreted that question is, well, this is how I feel. Whoa! And everybody just started laughing. And I'm like, that's how I feel. And it just became like this nonverbal expression of like my energy and enthusiasm. And it stuck with me over all the years. And obviously it's a play on Ric Flair and what he did. But I don't know, I just get both my fists and I just bring it in. It's like bringing people into me. Like, I want you to feel what I feel. And then my eyes open up and I look like a psychopath. Woo! And I just love doing it. And I've done it over the years. And now it's just caught on. When people see me, they're just like, there's the woo guy,
The
right?
woo
So
guy,
that's like
yeah.
my signature thing that's happening.
And
now.
I got to say, because you had us do it in the event that we just did, and
Yeah.
it felt pretty good.
Yeah, it does.
It felt pretty good to do it.
It just, you're able to release. And I just heard him. It allows you to release like positivity and enthusiasm, but it also releases like toxicity and negativity. It's like whatever's inside of you, whether good or bad, it's just like letting it out. It's like an expression. I just love it because it's just like really high energy. And I've always been like a firm believer that it takes fire to light fire. One of the old guys I worked with, Chad, you might remember, he said, listen, Ali, if you set yourself on fire, people will pay to watch you burn. And, it was just a really funny slogan that he had, but that's the nature of who I am. I'm just excited and fired up. And I thought I would slow down at 35, but I'm not. Sure, I have more responsibilities and I become more mature and I have moments of like, being calm in front of the kids and whatnot, but just in general, I just have this oomph, this passion for life, and I just want people to feel it. And I think that's why people are kind of drawn into me is, I'm literally exuding dopamines to everybody.
Yeah.
You can be excited if you're around me.
So next for you is you're getting into speaking.
Yeah.
And
That's my real
I would
passion.
say you're natural, but we both know it's come from years of mastering your craft.
Yeah.
What's that look like for you?
So right now, obviously I have obligations and I have responsibilities. My first and foremost responsibility is to my wife, to my kids, to my family. That's why I'm doing all of this, right? To create this legacy. I want to create a legacy in the marketplace, but I want to create a long-lasting legacy for my children as well. I'm like the first of my generation to come into North America. The part of the story I didn't reveal on a side note is my grandfather, whose name was Ali as well. We lived in the northern part of Iran, and he was super successful. Had, a dozen kids. My dad was the youngest one, who he's 70 years old right now, my father. But my grandfather owned multiple properties, commercial properties, hotels, gas stations. The mansion that we lived on, the street was called Zamany. So we lived on a street that was named after us because he owned the street and all the properties there. That's how successful we were back there. And, when we immigrated from Canada or Iran to Canada, my dad sold his life savings, got us some fake passports from Paraguay, hopped on the plane, he cut up the passports and flushed it down the toilet.
Wow.
So when we landed in Customs and Immigration and they said, where did you come from? We all said, we don't know. And they had nowhere to send us back. That's how we ended up staying in Toronto. But when we came out there, I just saw my dad struggle for decades, and he's not struggling anymore because he's retiring, because I'm contributing to him and I'm trying to help him out as well. But I saw my dad struggle. He went from a life of living like a king to not so much. So I want to be like that guy, like my grandfather was in Iran, and I want to create that generational wealth. I want to be that guy on the lineage of the family tree that brings it up 20 or 30 levels. So that's one of my motivations, to create this generational wealth and legacy, obviously for the children, and that's my responsibility. But like my obligation currently right now is to my current businesses. A, because I've started these businesses and people depend on me, and B, because I've put a lot of money into it. So I got to find a good balance of how do I prioritize the family, real businesses outside of social media, And the only reason I embrace social media is because I feel like it's a catalyst for me to pursue my profession in public speaking. Otherwise, it's fake as fuck. I don't really like it, and I denied it. So I'm learning how to treat it like a business. So I'm at this point now where I have spent the better part of a half a year building up to where I am now. And public speaking is where I want to head towards. I love door to door. It's injected in my DNA, like literally my blood cells. Like you have type B and you have like my blood cells are D to D. I have D to D blood cells inside of my body. I absolutely love it, but I feel like it's been preparing me for what I want to do and what I feel like I need to do, which is go out and impact on a global scale, not just with a couple hundred people or a couple thousand, be able to impact all these people around the world with what I've done. Obviously, I have the experience. I feel I have the credibility. I also have the relatability. A lot of people like the unfiltered, authentic, colorful content that I present to them as well. So, and then you add in some passion and energy, and I feel like it resonates. Plus, I've been able to successfully balance a home life and a work life as well. So I feel like this is the moment to start making this transition. If I had a genie lamp, and if I had Aladdin's lamp, right? Prince Ali, if I had Aladdin's lamp right now, and I can rub it, and he popped out and said, Ali, your wish is my command. You get one wish, and that wish would be pursue public speaking full time. That's what I'd love to do right now. That's where my real passion is and has been for over 10 years.
Yeah. I have zero doubt in my mind that that's going to be a massive success for you.
Thank you.
Zero doubt in my mind. And in fact, I look forward to many more visits to events that you do. I think that we shared my favorite quote in there when our team was nice enough to give me a trophy.
Yeah.
And success is getting what you want. And I think so many people fight and lose integrity and do all these things for success, and they lose the fact that success is, fulfillment, real success is giving what you have and contributing.
Yeah.
And I love that you share your failures. I love that you actively contribute, and that it's obvious that you can't fake this. You and me both know this. You can't fake that you care about people and that you want to see them grow. And so I'm really excited for you to grow your career and to see the difference and changes that you make in people's lives. And I look forward to having your audio tapes in my car in the morning listen to you as I come. So I really appreciate your time. For those that are watching out there, that are watching this cast either now or later, how can they get connected with you to see future footage?
All right, so I'm active on social media, but I have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I've kind of neglected those. Instagram is the main platform I've been choosing to grow on. I feel like it has the best leverage to be able to grow. So if you guys want to follow me, it's at the Ali Zamany. So TheAlizamany. I'm actually in negotiation with somebody to buy the Instagram page Ali, ALI. So that might be a lot easier to remember in the future. But at the Ali Zamany, I'm in the final stages of creating my own personal website, alizamany.com, ALIZAMANY.com. You can actually click on the website right now and subscribe and submit your email. It's going to give you updates when we're live and ready to go. So this website is going to be this epicenter that's going to basically house all of my content. Right now, I've just started a YouTube channel, again, under Ali Zamany. I've already put out a few videos. I'm going to be starting a podcast. I recently connected with a couple of videographers to start documenting, regular days for me and creating this content. Actually connected with Ed Milet's videographer, Nico, recently, and we created some epic footage at my house last week. Doing a couple of podcasts with Brad Lee, Dropping Bombs, Ronnie Lambeth, School of Wealth, Andy Audate. So now I'm starting to venture out into podcasting, interviewing, creating YouTube content, and it's going to be on all these different platforms, but I'm going to house everything on the website. In addition, in the early stages of figuring out which platform, probably Brad Lee with Lightspeed VT, to start creating a training program where I can have courses that are made. I'm going to do the corporate side, the business side with Sam Taggart and DDDU, the personal branding, because Brad's been the guy behind many successful people like Grant Cardone and many of the greats that we know. Thought that'd be a better wheelhouse to join. But creating online sales training courses and programs, not your swipe up and get rich, but your 12 CD sets on how to be an effective salesperson, how to increase your revenue and your sales. I've already pulled the trigger on a ghostwriter. So basically, as of April, I'm starting the process to write a book, and it should be done by possibly June. So sometime in July or August, mid to end summer, I'm going to be dropping my first book. So there's going to be
a sneak peek on the title.
I'm trying to figure that out right now. I wish I knew it. I'm just trying to determine, is it going to be sales, leadership, or mindset? It's going to be one of the three. I'm thinking for all of my door-to-door peeps, probably sales is going to be the most broad category to really help everybody out. So I think I'll probably start with the sales book with a really catchy title. Who knows? I might put a voice box on there so you can press the button and you can hear woo.
I was gonna say, how many O's is it gonna have on the title?
So yeah, I'm just gonna start documenting things that I know and things that I've learned. And the website's the best place eventually that you can get all my content. But right now, just go to my Instagram and you could follow me on all platforms, and I throw everything out there. Right now, all the content is free. I'm not charging for it. I'm not focused on monetizing it right now, but that shift will be happening very soon, where obviously if I pursue this as a career professionally and this becomes my full-time profession, then obviously I'm going to have to figure out how to monetize it. So I'm 6 months of preparing, 15 years of preparing, 6 months of online preparation to build a bit of social capital, and I'm literally 3 or 4 weeks in. So I'm excited to see what the next 3 or 4 months and 3 or 4 years will hold for me.
That's amazing. Well, yeah. I want to, on behalf of all of us here at America Security, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Thank you for having me.
I know I've personally taken leaps and bounds growing just listening to you and contributing to the energy that you have. It's just absolutely phenomenal. So thank you for coming. I look forward to doing this again sometime in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thank you.